So Sarah, thank you very much indeed for joining us today, for joining me. We're going to start a little bit, if that's all right, just to talk a little bit to start with about your background and what brought you to this point here.
So, having finished university, I started teaching down at Cranleigh School in Surrey. Spent 9 very happy years there, and then I came here in 2018 to set up the politics department. But during that time, helped with the academic scholarship programme, was in Hailey. And then
That's one of the boarding houses, Hailey House, yeah.
And then took over as head of sixth form last year.
Great. So as head of sixth form, what kind of occupies you day to day? What are your main kind of priorities, areas that you work on?
There's no day that's the same to the previous one.
Probably quite nice in many ways.
Yeah. Definitely varied. The thing I love most about the job is that I get to spend lots and lots of time with our pupils. This office that we're in here now is in the sixth form centre itself. A lot of my days are spent up here with the sixth formers, helping them with academic concerns or worries, helping them to plan out their futures, university applications.
That's good. So we'll come back to futures in a minute. I want to talk a little bit about, let's say I'm a pupil that wants to join the school or is thinking about joining the school. Why should I come here? What's attractive about the sixth form at Haileybury?
I think the best thing that we have, apart from the awesome community, but I think the sixth form in particular offers so many pathways. And whatever people are into, then there is a pathway for them here. Whether that's the IB or A level, whether that is through choice of subjects. If you are a wannabe scientist, we have the STANEX programme, which is an incredible collaboration with Stanford and Oxford universities. If you're into the arts, there's the school musical every year. We've got a flourishing art department. If you're into humanities, there's societies that regularly run. We have the biggest MUN conference in the UK. If you're into your sport, there's top level sport. We have the CCF, we have all kinds of things. So there is something for everyone. Whilst we are very well set up for all-rounders, there's also a real opportunity, I think, here for pupils to really find their loves and their passions.
Is it fair to say that there's some really kind of high-level support as well? So let's say I wanted to focus on medicine or I wanted to focus on architecture or something like that in terms of next steps in my career and study. Is there the support that I might need from different members of staff in that respect?
Completely. We're really lucky that we have so many heads of department in particular who are so specialised in different areas. Gareth Lewis runs our MDV programme, so for medicine, dentistry and veterinary. And he's also heavily involved with research and the STANEX programme. We're also really lucky that we have a former lawyer on staff who runs our law society and our law programme. So even subjects that aren't offered at A level or IB, they can get tailored support.
Always useful, yeah, very good. And in terms of next steps then, so moving on from here onto the wider world, fair to say that the majority of the pupils are going to university, but also fair to say that an increase in desire and interest in America, for example. Can you talk to us just a little bit about that kind of the university application process in terms of what kind of directions people go in, what support they might have if they come here?
I think what's changed a lot in the last 10 to 20 years in particular is that university is now very much a global marketplace. So whilst the majority of pupils here do still apply through UCAS, they're often doing that whilst also applying elsewhere as well. We're really lucky to have a brilliant head of futures, Carrie Wright, who is American herself and knows the US system inside out. So she helps pupils with American applications. We're also an SAT test centre. So that means that pupils can take their SATs without having to leave the school campus. And increasingly, a lot of pupils are applying to some of the top universities in the States. What I really like, though, is that it's not just America. Last year in particular, we had a really good number of pupils going to study in Canada. Particularly McGill and Toronto were very popular. And then in Europe, so places like Sciences Po in Paris, Asada, Bocconi, IE, And even beyond that, this year, we've had people applying, for example, to study medicine in Singapore.
And do we still have the support for those applications? Obviously, a lot of our pupils do go still to the UK, but with that increase in nationalities or geographically that spread, do we still have that support, and can we advise them sensibly about those different options?
Very, very much so. And I think because it's developed so much over time, we've gradually built up expertise in all of these different applications and also the relationships with the universities themselves. So we're, for example, have a partnership with IE because so many of our pupils have gone to IE in recent years. They send someone out every year to meet with our pupils who are potentially interested.
And that's really exciting to have those kind of links at that highest level as well, isn't it? To kind of give them all the advice that they need.
Very much so, very much so. And I think we have the Overseas Universities Fair, for example. And again, that's just a really good opportunity to meet people.
Let's say I wasn't quite so interested in going direct to university. So there's another option in terms of gap years, and we might talk about that in a minute as well. But what about other alternatives?
So we've had a few pupils, not potentially as many as I would hope we will eventually end up at, but over the last couple of years, a couple of pupils have gone for degree apprenticeships. And some of the schemes out there now are incredible. And I think there will be a big movement there continually over the next few years. We keep working with employers to make sure that we know exactly what is out there for pupils who want that route. But our big mission at the minute is very much still educating pupils and parents about how good degree apprenticeships are. Because I think sometimes people still see the word apprenticeship and there's historically maybe not to be as good as university. But actually, that's simply not the case. And I think gradually re-educating people to that is one of our big missions for the coming years.
Could be quite a big change, I think, over the next 5 or 10 years, I think, probably. Let's talk about the gap year experience. Do we have many pupils going on to do that? Is that something that you support, think is a good idea? What kind of options are there out there? Is that something, again, that we can support with?
Yes, and I think it's very varied what people do. A good number of pupils do go on gap years, and I think it's right for some people and not right for others. There's some amazing opportunities out there. One of our pupils this year is going to spend time in Uganda as part of the HYT programme, the Haileybury Youth Trust. And we're really excited to have that gap year programme back up and running.
And that's helping a charity in Uganda. It's helping plant trees, put in latrines, water tanks for schools and things like that, isn't it? It's a really, really positive experience. So what about at the very highest level? So let's say we're looking at some of the Oxbridge, Cambridge kind of level. Is that something that, again, we support the pupils with? Is that something that we have that experience to help with?
So every year we have a good number who apply to Oxbridge, and we have successes every year. And we're very lucky, again, that we are able to offer that support to those pupils. I think what's really interesting, though, is it is now very much Oxbridge and best. Because of this global marketplace of universities, a lot of our top students are also looking at the Ivies in America and some of those top European universities I mentioned before. A lot of our students are also particularly drawn to London, and it's been really striking this year that we've had quite a lot of success with LSE and Imperial in particular. And also, I think noteworthy that this year have had a lot of success with our medical applicants. We've got 6 pupils this year who will be off to study medicine. And I think that is a testament to the work of Gareth and his team, particularly with Stanex. All of these medics have been doing the Stanex programme. But I think to just define success by Oxbridge now is a bit outdated, I think, because it's so important that pupils can do what they want to at the highest level, wherever that is.
Let's bring it back a little bit to you. You said, obviously, you love your job here and the fact that no 2 days are the same. Fantastic. You also mentioned the word community earlier on. Is that something that's important to you as well in terms of that kind of working environment?
To be honest, it was the reason that I came to Haileybury in the first place. I'd read an article literally a few weeks before I came to be interviewed here, and it had talked about how parents, when they're trying to choose a school for their child, should look for the eye contact and the communication between pupils and pupils, pupils and staff and staff between lessons. It wasn't so much what was going on in the classroom, although that obviously matters. But if you want to understand the school, it's that informal communication that matters. And what I was immediately struck by at Haileybury was the warmth of the relationships between everyone and the genuine sense of community that you just don't get everywhere. And that was ultimately what brought me to Haileybury, because it's so important.
Yeah, I think we'd all feel the same about that as well. And thank you, very good. One thing we always ask each interviewee is a question from the previous interviewee. So the previous interviewee asked the question, what was your favourite trip that you've ever been on as part of the school?
I've been lucky enough to go on quite a few different trips, and I went on the geography trip to Iceland. And that
I'm not a geographer.
I am not a geographer. I'd never been to Iceland before.
Yeah.
And I learnt so much from all the other members of staff who were there. Mm-hmm. It was a really special trip. Mm-hmm. I feel I need to stick with my own department as well, though, and say the history trip to Alabama, also brilliant.
And it's fair to say there are lots of trips out there, aren't there, for all the pupils to pick and choose, and some fantastic opportunities that are available.
There are, and I think they're all valuable in different ways. So I go on a lot of the CCF camps, so that's the cadet camps. And let's all be honest, Beckingham up in Lincolnshire isn't exactly 5-star accommodation.
No.
But what the pupils gain from that experience, I think, is absolutely invaluable. So yes, there are all the amazing overseas trips, but equally, I think the school as a whole is about developing character. And sometimes you don't need to go that far to be able to do that.
Absolutely. A final question, if you would, is to provide a question that you would like me to ask somebody in the future, my next interviewee.
I would like you to ask them, if they didn't teach the subject that they currently teach, what would they teach instead?
A good one. Sarah, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for your time. Really nice to talk to you today.